Oh, frozen. Okay. Hey, everyone.
Hello.
I'm Alina.
And I'm Tony.
We're both therapists here at Harper Therapy. And today we're going to talk about trauma.
Yes. Here at Harper Therapy, we have a big focus on, and what I have found in working in the jail and even working here and doing initial sessions, when you're talking about someone's history and you say, well, have you had trauma? I get that. No trauma, no.
Yeah.
And then I'll be like, and of course, well, have you had physical abuse? No, no. Okay. You get that quicker. Nope, not at all, no.
Yeah.
And then as you dig deeper, you you break it down, everyone has trauma. And it just looks a little bit different. And everyone feels it a little bit different. And I think people don't realize that. And trauma has become a really big buzzword, I feel like. And people don't completely understand it. My family actually makes fun of me because I talk about trauma so much.
Right.
And then I was reading the
Oprah book?
Yes,
the Oprah book. Yes, you mentioned that.
Yeah, the Oprah book explains it that how everybody experiences trauma differently, and they give an example of like a house fire. And the person whose house burned down, it was extremely traumatic, and maybe they are waking up in the middle of the night, they check appliances constantly, different smells set them off, and they get anxious. So that's a high traumatic event for that person. Then there's the neighbor boy who maybe got woken up in the middle of the night and could smell the fire. He has a little bit of trauma, and maybe he struggles to fall asleep for a couple of weeks because he's afraid he's going to wake up.
Right.
And then there's the firefighter who ran into the house, and to him it's really not a big deal because this is what he trained for.
Right.
Maybe the victim looked like his grandmother, and so maybe it impacted him a little bit differently that way.
Right.
But everyone might have a little bit of the same experience, and it's just at a different level.
Different layers of trauma.
Yes.
Yeah. And something that, I think is interesting, we've been in the office, we have had this like video series that we've watched for trauma training, and one of the lead researchers on trauma, he wrote this really great book called The Body Keeps the Score. And he has been pushing for a different diagnosis for trauma outside of PTSD, because PTSD was originally created in the 70s, I believe, for veterans of war. They had acute trauma based on their experiences, whether it be seeing someone get killed, killing someone themselves, being in a bomb explosion, whatever it is. And so like when you see the symptoms of PTSD, I think a lot of us associate trauma with that, like this acute flashbacks, being scared, like having a fear response, like if someone comes close. But a lot of the time trauma is not just that. There's a term that this researcher uses called developmental trauma. And a lot of us have, or, in other words, it's also called complex trauma, right?
Yes.
So it's like not something that happened one time or acutely. It can be a series of things that have happened over time, or, having a parent who was not super attentive, or, being bullied. All those things can be classified.
Well, in my experience, I think our society sometimes will promote some of these trauma responses. Like, I am so proud of being a super independent girl. Like, this, I'm a rock star. I can handle everything. But then when I dig deep, that's actually a trauma response because I'm afraid to trust people because I've been hurt, and so I just want to do it on my own.
I don't want to ask for help.
Yeah, because it's something that I've learned, and it's a developmental trauma,
right.
and
from
so
early age.
And there's so many of us out there who, and yes, it's awesome to be independent.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's okay to question, like, okay, but why am I so independent, and why don't I want to ask for help?
To what extent and to what extreme?
Exactly.
Oftentimes when we're living in extremes, it's because we've had some type of, it's a response to trauma.
Yep. Yeah. My other example was that, because it's something that hit home with me on TikTok, where they were talking, because, guilty pleasure.
Favorite.
Right.
Your favorite.
They were saying how people who watch the same TV series over and over, and this completely, blew my mind, because I'm pretty sure I've talked about it on lives, that I'm a huge Grey's Anatomy fan, pretty much a doctor at this point, because I've watched it so many times. And this psychologist on TikTok was like, do you do this? And I was like, well, yeah, what's wrong with that? And it's about anxiety, and because you want to be able to know the ending so that you're not stressed out about what's going to happen next. And when I look back, when I've had a really stressful day or I'm in a situation that I can't control, my go-to is to go watch Grace.
Right.
Because I know the ending. I know what's going to happen.
Right.
And so it's
predictable.
Yes. So completely blew my mind because this whole time I just thought, hey, these are my friends on Grey's Anatomy. It's a great show. Like, this is what I do.
We're people.
Yeah, exactly. We're besties.
Yeah.
And turns out it's a trauma response.
Right. And I think it's important to note that it manifests for people in so many different ways. Yes. So, like, just because you don't watch shows, like I was like, well, I don't ever like watching shows more than once, but that doesn't mean I don't have trauma. Like, it just comes out differently. Like, we all have our different reasons for doing things in the way that it manifests. A trauma response can really even be like being the good girl or like being super productive or super high achieving. That in and of itself can be a trauma response because you're compensating for this like feeling of something happened, I'm not okay, and I need to make the things in my outside world be okay in order for me to feel okay. So there's a lot to it. It's really complex. And I think, if anything in this video that we talked about resonates with you and you're feeling like a little off in certain areas of your life, I think you mentioned that, Tony, before. It's like, pick up the phone and give us a call because it might be worth exploring, like, hey, what's going on?
Yeah, if you want to get curious about, like, well, hey, why do I do that? Why am I obsessed with keeping my house clean and I have to make sure everything is organized just so? There might be a deeper reason for it.
Yeah, and ultimately, I think these things affect our relationships, affect our general overall sense of well-being, and, ultimately we all want just, connection and love. So,
So if any of this resonates with you guys or you have any other questions about trauma, just give us a call at Help for Therapy, 813-434-3639.
She's got that number down. All right. Thanks, everyone. I'll see you next week. Okay, it's not letting me stop. Sorry, this is continuing to go.
I'm trying to see if it popped up.